We are live in Studio B on President's Day with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton alongside Jarom Jordan. It is our pleasure now to welcome into BYU Sports Nation for the first time ever in this live show format. We've done almost 2,500 episodes.
It's about time.
Andy Reid.
We waited till he won a second Super Bowl, then we invited him on. Yeah, exactly.
Coach, all you had to do was win a second Super Bowl title to get the show invite, so welcome.
Well, listen, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's an honor. Thank you.
What is your life like right now, a couple of weeks removed from the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so it moves quick. So I gave the coaches a few days off, and then we have a big awards banquet, the 101 Awards back in Kansas City, and then we'll go back for that and then head to the Combine down in Indianapolis for a week. So time moves fast here, and love every minute of it, but it moves fast.
That's quite the array, the spread you got behind you. This is the male charcuterie board, if you will, of parties. Is all the footballs, all the helmets behind you? What's your favorite piece of memorabilia in that room?
Well, there's actually a little BYU statue up there somewhere of when I had an opportunity to play at BYU, and I love that thing. I've kept all my helmets. My wife gave them to me for one of our anniversary gifts, and so I've got all those. I've got all these balls, and you don't know what to do with all the balls when you get them. So she figured out how to put them on the wall here, and so we did that, and they accumulate fast. And I've been lucky enough to do this a while, so I've got a few of them there.
Fantastic. Andy Reid with us on BYU Sports Nation, coming off that second Super Bowl victory. Coach, how was Super Bowl win number 2 different than the first?
Yeah, I think you probably appreciate it just a little bit more. Everything slowed down, so you could appreciate it. You knew what was coming forward once you got there, and then if you're lucky enough to win the son of a gun, then you know, then you're able to enjoy it just a bit more. I mean, that first one was a whirlwind after the win, and then when you lose, you take them and throw them out of your mind anyways. You don't care about those, but that second win, I just slowed down a bit.
Is it a requirement for your team to trail by 10 points in the Super Bowls that you win?
I'll tell you, it sure seems like it. We do good when we're behind, and it makes you feel like the underdog. So you fight a little harder, and our guys did a good job of that.
You did something on Super Bowl Sunday that no coach in history has ever done, which is probably participate in a baby blessing. I believe it was Porter Elliott's. I played on an intramural team with Porter. We love Porter here.
Yes.
We saw some pictures. Matt Bushman was on the program and talked about that sacrament meeting with some of the BYU guys. What was that like on one of the most important days of your life, and certainly one of the most important days of Porter's life?
Well, yeah, they're both important things that took place. Obviously, Porter's baby probably a little bit higher priority right there. I mean, that's a pretty important time, and Porter's life and his family's life and his baby's life. So we were able to take care of that in the morning. A lot of brother in there, we had a lot of support for that baby. We were bouncing him almost to the ceiling. So it was great. It was great. It was a very spiritual moment, and no better way to start Super Bowl Sunday than with that. And then we were able to go out and play a good game.
One of the greatest coaches in pro football history, Andy Reid, is making his debut on BYU Sports Nation. With the 2 Super Bowl victories now, Coach, what's left on your goal progression chart at this point?
Yeah, so, you get to this point, you're glad you wake up the next day, right? I mean, that's you put your Tommy Bahama on and you roll, man. So I'm glad to be talking to you guys. So, but that every day in the National Football League's a challenge, and the other guys are working their tails off to do well, and so that helps drive you. And I still enjoy what I'm doing. I still enjoy the guys. They all stay kind of the same age. The faces change, but they're the same age. I get older. They remain the same. So, but they bring great energy, and they keep me young at heart. And it's fun to, with the strategy part of it. It's fun with the personality part of it, with the players, and we try to make it a good good working environment for the guys, and then we roll from there. I'll tell you, it's fast and furious. We enjoy it though.
Hey, Fast and the Furious 10 coming out in the next couple months. Nice plug there, Coach. When Ty Detmer won the Heisman, he said, "I've stood on the shoulders of some of the great BYU quarterbacks to get to this point." He was very appreciative of that. You've certainly talked a lot about LaVell Edwards' influence, and obviously Mike Holmgren as well, with the BYU connection there. How did LaVell in particular affect the way you have become, who you are as a coach, and how you've been in the NFL, kind of taking what he did in college and to some degree becoming the LaVell from BYU fans in the NFL?
Yeah, so Coach was so steady. I mean, he just kept, and he was so honest with everybody. And you could be in the toughest of times, and he was just gonna be nice and calm and be able to sort out things and give you great information. When I left the building, he said, "Hey, when you come, this was a simple thing, but it's something I've carried throughout my life. You know, I mean, it was great advice." So he said, "Listen, when you're going to become a full-time coach now. So when you go to the head coach with a problem, have a well thought out answer." So my wife is the head coach. So I do that with her. She's the head coach, so I come to her if I've got a problem with a well thought out answer. But you can use that anywhere in life. And he just had these little nuggets that he would throw at you, and as a player, and then I also served with him as a graduate assistant. So I was able to take that with me. And then listen, I mean, how many guys could sit here and say that for the remaining part of Coach's life, he would call me once a week?
Wow.
I mean, we would talk once a week. I mean, that doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen to everybody in my position. So I was grateful for that and all of his advice.
We talked to our good friend Steve Young just a few days ago, and he shared some fantastic stories about you and potentially benching him as a JV quarterback so that a father could watch his other son play at Air Force. But that's a conversation for another day. Steve did say that you're changing the game and how coaches approach players now with this statement. He said, "Andy has shown you that you can be excellent and you can be kind." How have you been able to establish that when it hasn't been the norm in football in such a tough game and a cutthroat world? But you've done this, so how have you done it?
Yeah, well, I would tell you that's probably another thing I got from Coach Edwards and Mike Holmgren likewise. I mean, I was lucky enough to work for both of them, and that's how they handled it. They were real with people. If they weren't afraid to praise somebody if they did well. So a lot of times we get caught up in telling people how bad they did, and that's not. They know how bad they did, so you don't really have to say that. If you goof, everybody in the world knows it in the National Football League. So, but to give them some positive reinforcement, I think that's important. And I don't listen. Steve had been around the National Football League for a long time, and he has an opportunity in his job to see the way a lot of people do it, and so I only know kind of how I was raised in it and how we operate now with the Chiefs. So and we try to treat the guys like human beings and like you would want to be treated. All the little golden rules that we've been given in the church, I mean, you can use in your jobs, and one of which is to be kind to others. So. And that's and to be teachers, and those are things that we understand and we live by. So it's I've just transferred that into my job.
Hey, Sermon on the Mount in NFL huddles. I love it. You completed your second season with the Eagles in the year 2000. You go 11-5. At that point, LaVell Edwards announces he's retiring. What kind of conversations happened with the possibility at BYU of taking over for LaVell, given that you had just started to have your run of success with the Eagles?
Oh boy, that would have been a real honor to be able to do that. I've just had signed a new contract, and so I didn't have necessarily that flexibility. When you're a head coach, you're responsible at this level for 20 different people. I mean, Kalani does a great job with that. I mean, it's not just one person you're dealing with or just the organization that you're dealing with, but it's everybody that you're dealing with. And so it's not as easy to just pick up and leave. You're affecting all these different families. And so I wanted to make sure, I obviously my energy was there. I did have a chance to talk to some of the people there, the athletic director and vice president who's in charge of athletics. But I explained that to them that, listen, the responsibility I have is not only to the Eagles, but it's also to, all these families.
I think in the metaverse, at least the fantasy metaverse for a lot of BYU fans, Coach, they see you somehow involved down the line. They take you until the very end if you were willing to do that. Have you ever entertained the idea that maybe when you're done coaching pro football, maybe there is something for you at BYU?
Well, listen, I think BYU's in good hands, man. I love Kalani and the job he does, and he brings a lot of what Coach Edwards brought, personality-wise, and so, not every year is going to be the best year. I mean, that's just not how it goes. But where BYU's at now with the leadership of Tom Homo and Chad and Lee and all the different people that are involved in the leadership groups they're heading in the right direction. Then all of a sudden we get to be in one of these mega conferences and how great is that? I mean, that's a phenomenal thing. You don't get there by not having a great reputation as a football team. So here we sit, and now everybody gets to raise their game up just a tick to compete.
It's the next challenge, and we're all very excited about it. This fall, you came to a home game during a bye week, I believe, and Chad Lewis told us you were offered a box, and you said, "No, I want to sit in the stands." They announced your name. I know Greg Wrubell even said the section you were sitting in. Can you just casually go get a cougar tail at that point, or do you send a runner? How does that work?
Well, they actually sent me a bunch of cougar tails. Those things are really good. So I enjoyed that. But no, you want to be out there and kind of get a feel for things. And I'm used to being on the sideline, and heck, they had me a seat as close to the sideline as we could get. I was sitting right next to Davis, who I compete against against the Chargers, and I was giving him the business. He was giving me the business, but we were pulling for BYU. So, we were all pulling in the same direction, which is great. But I got a feel for it. That's what I enjoy that part of it.
Coach, you bring up Michael Davis, and obviously Matt Bushman is a part of the Chiefs. Zane Anderson was on your practice squad this year. You've got ties with Chad Lewis and Daniel Sorensen. A lot of BYU ties in the NFL right now, and guys making an impact. How much do you feel the impact of BYU with former players doing their thing, especially this last season?
Well, listen, I love having BYU players on there. San Francisco's got a pretty good linebacker that went to BYU, and then I had the Reynolds brothers. So at one time in Philadelphia, and so I've always had BYU guys on the team, and they've always been so good. Dan Sorensen played for me for a number of years and was a hard-hitting safety for us, and he's playing for New Orleans now. But he did a great job for us. Actually led us to one of the Super Bowls. So I appreciated all of his worth that he gave that football team. The thing that you get is you get great character. I joke about Chad Lewis. I mean, here he was my favorite, and everybody knew he was my favorite, and we got away with it. Right? So he was a teacher's pet, and nobody ever said, "Hey, you really favored Chad Lewis." I said, "No, you all know he's my favorite." But he could tell the guys what their tattoos meant, and he would do that. He would mess with them and say, "Do you guys know what that means? You might want to double check what that means on your arm there." And because he speaks Mandarin, and the guys have the tattoos with the. So he would mess with him, but what it would do is it opened doors for him, and he would get to know everybody, and then he became the team's favorite. So it was unique, unique relationship that he had in that locker room. And Reno Mahe is another one. I mean, Reno was in there, and he had a special relationship with his personality. So it's great to see the guys get into that mix of people. We've got people from all over the place, from all different backgrounds, and now from different countries. So it's great to see our BYU student athletes come in there and as a professional and be able to work in and work their way in to a special relationship with all those guys in the locker room.
Spencer, your son, is my neighbor, and I sit next to him in Elder Quorum sometime as the interim strength and conditioning coach at BYU. How proud are you of what he's doing with the Cougars and helping them get stronger here before spring ball?
Yeah, no, I know he enjoys it and works very hard at it. He, you know, he's a good kid like me. He lost his hair, as you know. He's now gone with the chrome top. So. But he is, you know, he interned for me, so I got a chance to see him when he was younger, working in our strength department, and so he's been able to transfer that to a couple different schools and now BYU, and so I know he feels, you know, he loves BYU. He's loved it since he was a kid, and it's a dream job for him.
Andy Reid with us on BYU Sports Nation. Coach, we'll wrap up with this. We have circled October 21st on BYU's football schedule this fall because Texas Tech is playing in Provo against BYU. And Matt Bushman told us he's already had a conversation with Pat Mahomes about trying to petition the NFL so that you can have a bye week so that they can come out and watch that game together. If that happens, would you be with them on that jet over to Provo?
Well, if it was a bye week, there's a good chance because Pat started talking about it right when the schedule came out, and then he and Bushman started getting into it, and so they obviously Pat brought me into the mix, and I said, "You better strap it on when you come play the Cougs, man. we don't mess around up there."
Great stuff. We appreciate the time, Coach. I know that you have some very valuable vacation time before you got to get back into combine stuff and assessing personnel. So thank you for your time and your kindness, and congratulations once again from all of us at BYU Sports Nation and across Cougar Nation on your second Super Bowl victory.
Guys, I appreciate it, man. You do a good job right there. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy Reid, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs on BYU Sports Nation.